Cold, hunger, darkness, and thirst are not as scary and deadly for us as your friendship and brotherhood. These were the words of President Volodymyr Zelensky to Russia 6 days after September 6, when Ukraine launched counteroffensive in Kharkiv. Since then, Ukraine has recaptured strategically important positions on the southern and eastern fronts, reversing months of Russian advancements within weeks. Soon after, mass graves were found by Ukrainian forces in Izium and Lyman. Initial reports stated that one of them could have more than 400 bodies, including remains of women and children. Then, the unthinkable happened. The Russian army started bombing Ukraine's critical civilian infrastructure, including energy facilities. Their intentions to undermine industrial production, disrupt transportation, sow fear and despair, and deprive civilians of Ukraine of heat, electricity, and water while the cold grip of winter approaches was displayed for all to see. And this is why Ukraine will fight ever harder. The horrors they've heard from their parents and grandparents are happening to them too. The stories of how national identity was suppressed, human rights were violated, and the spread of disinformation now suddenly becomes very real again for modern Ukraine. The fight for independence is once again now in their hands, just as how their forefathers had. History. From the founding of Kievan Rus in the 9th century, to the Mongolian invasion in 11th century, 12th century Polish-Lithuanian annexation, and the Russian monarchy empire in the 15th century. Over the centuries, different empires and warring conquests have changed borders, religions, and people, creating a complex fabric of multi-ethnic states. It wasn't until 1917, when the Russian monarchy was upended by the Russian Revolution, that Ukraine finally declared independence. But it was short-lived. Ukrainians fought hard against the Bolshevik Red Army to maintain their independence. They persevered, before finally defeated by the Soviets in 1922 and becoming one of the first republics of the USSR, also known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. This was when the nightmare began. Human rights violations. In 1928, Stalin rose to power, becoming General Secretary of the USSR. Fearing that a Ukrainian revolution is imminent from the Ukrainization policies by Lenin, he conducted a series of political murders on Ukraine's intellectuals, church leaders, and pro-Ukrainian party members. At the same time, Stalin put in place the first 5-year plan to rapidly industrialize USSR by building up electricity, coal, and steel industries. All these funded by exporting grain from Ukraine. In order to gain control over all the small individual Ukrainian farms, he devised a plan to consolidate them into large state-run farms. This came to be known as the collectivization of agriculture. Farmers that resisted and refused to surrender their farms to that state find themselves arrested, shot, or deported to labor camps by the secret police and the Red Army. To accelerate his plan, Stalin launched propaganda smear campaigns labeling farmers owning more land as kulaks, depicting them as greedy exploiters and enemies of the state. By doing so, Stalin effectively fragmented the rural community, removing peasantry leaders to allow confiscation of lands into state ownership. In 1931, grain quotas were intentionally raised to levels that are impossible for any farmer in Soviet Union to meet. When farmers failed to meet the quotas, Stalin's men would raid and confiscate all the grain they could find. Houses were searched. Soil was dug up to remove any sources of food. By 1932, widespread famine has engulfed over grain-producing areas. In this same year, Stalin instituted the law of 5 stalks of grain, and that anyone that takes or hides grain shall face 10 years of imprisonment or even death. Villages and collective farms that fail to meet quotas are also blacklisted and blocked from receiving foods or other goods. In 1933, starving farmers were forcefully placed under internal passport system. It was a death sentence, keeping them entrapped within the country, unable to move into cities or borders in search of food. By June of 1933, 28,000 Ukrainians were dying, each day. People were so desperate that they would eat whatever they could find anywhere: streams, rivers, trees. Some even ate their own pets and even commit cannibalism. By August of 1933, the targeted extermination of peasantry was so drastic that Stalin had to relocate farmers from areas of Russia in order to keep grain production going. Till this day, the southern and eastern regions of Ukraine are majority Russians. And as expected of the General Secretary of the USSR, a disinformation campaign was launched to hide the truth of the atrocities committed. Outright denial of the man-made famine, banned Soviet press from reporting it, and stopped foreign reporters from entering Ukraine. But he cleverly made calculated moves to downplay the famine by using terms as food supply problem or food shortages. Even death certificates were altered so that starvation was not the cause. Despite the deliberate attempt to hide the truth, this horrific violation of human rights was slowly passed down from one generation to the next, forever remembered as the Holodomor, a fusion of Ukrainian words for starvation and inflicting death. Disinformation and Lies. April 26, 1986, 1:23:57 a.m. Chernobyl power plant, located 94 kilometers above the Ukrainian capital Kiev, exploded, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere and setting the power plants ablaze. The world's first major incident involving nuclear energy. The horrors of radiation exposure were experienced and witnessed firsthand by those in Pripyat. Firemen extinguished flames at the power plants without PPE. Policemen assisting with road blockages without PPE. Even after 36 hours later, residents in Pripyat were not evacuated. None of these would have happened if not for intentional lies and cover-ups leading to the accidents. A formalized ritualistic practice by the Soviet regime on Ukrainian soil. This memo, dated on July 28, 1986, located within KGB archives, stated that multiple information was classified as secret and therefore forbidden in the Soviet Union after the incident. Information about the radiation situation, exposure of the station personnel, the repair personnel of the organizations involved and the population, and radioactive contamination of the natural environments, food products, and feed exceeding permissible concentrations. These information that was withheld from Ukrainians were potentially life-saving information about the health and environmental effects caused by the nuclear reactor accidents. It was an accident, they claimed. This document, written by KGB itself, talked about the design flaws of the reactor, in quotes, formation and accumulation of radioactive products in the active zone of the reactor, the first cooling system and thermal fission elements. In cases where this process goes beyond established limits, it could lead to radioactive contamination of the territory of the atomic energy station and the surrounding areas. Because of this, the atomic energy station is a potential source of radioactive danger for its service personnel and the surrounding population. The design of the RBMK-1000 reactor was developed so that the installation of such a cover is practically impossible, let alone without ceasing the operation of the reactor. For this reason, the Leningrad, Kursk, and Chernobyl atomic energy stations at the present time are the most dangerous with regard to their future use, which could have threatening consequences. As though things were not bad enough, KGB documentation on the construction of the plant stated that there are cases of violations of technical standards taking place in the construction of the Chernobyl atomic energy station, and the directorate of the Chernobyl atomic energy station under construction noticed serious inadequacies in the work of the reinforcement workshop. However, the measures necessary to eliminate them are not being undertaken. The Soviets were fully aware of the risks and danger of running this plant from the very beginning, from the reactor design leading up to the construction of Chernobyl itself. And even in the aftermath of the explosion, not one canceled the 1986 May Day parade in Kiev, where thousands of people celebrated along the streets, unaware of the fatal clouds of radiation right on top of them. The consequences of this deliberate attempt to cover up the truth was fully unleashed in the Chernobyl incidents. The choice to hide truth from upper echelons of bureaucracy and from the public directly led to unnecessary loss of lives. And this permeates through the entire USSR power pyramid. This act of preserving power using disinformation over human lives shows the utter disregard for the Ukrainian comrades. In their eyes, the lives of these people are simply sacrificial pawns that justifies the use of disinformation campaigns to quench their thirst of power. It wasn't until Sweden, 1,100 kilometers away from Chernobyl, detected radiation and sounded the alarm that the iron cage of lies around Chernobyl began to crack. But it was all too late. Ukraine has seen centuries of conflict and endured battle since the era of Vikings. With the current invasion, the latest in series of conflicts, Putin's claim that Ukrainian statehood, a fiction, directly undermines the historical evidence of Ukraine's existence before becoming a socialist state of Soviet Union. demonstrates the usage of disinformation to attempt recolonizing Ukraine away from its independence and to conveniently suppress Ukrainians' national identity, language, and culture. As Ukraine continues to push Russian forces back, the uncovered mass burial sites reminded Ukrainians that Russia is not a brother as they claimed. As Russia continues to shell and bomb civilization infrastructure, Ukraine is now reminded of the horrors of Holodomor and Chernobyl. In their act of war crimes now, Putin has demonstrated his playbook of conducting targeted extermination of innocent people without remorse. The horrors experienced by their forefathers before them. The stories of how Ukraine was suppressed of their national identity and culture. A story of nationwide starvation when the fields and farms are filled with grain. Stories of Ukrainians suddenly disappearing for wanting freedom and independence. The story of how they lied and hid the truth while letting radioactive clouds pass over Ukraine and surrounding regions. These stories become powerful motivators in this fight for independence. And the whole world is certain that Ukraine is determined to keep this story of one that Ukraine shall prevail and succeed. The notion of losing to Russian army and be subjected to Putin's influence is far more horrific, as facing death for the sake of independence is far better than facing death being powerless and helpless. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next video.